And Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton spoke at the Reagan Library this week, where he laid out his vision for a populist Republican agenda. Now, in his speech, he called for regulating big tech, securing the border, and perhaps most importantly, training his sights on the #1 threat to the United States.
Both parties are complicit in one of the single worst mistakes of this generation: granting communist China permanent most favored nation status and admitting it into the World Trade Organization. China's entry into the WTO in 2001 began a hollowing out of America's industrial base, economy, and working class. In the name of security, fairness, and justice, and prosperity for our people, it's time to end our economic reliance on China.
Decouple from China? Where have I heard that before? Music to my ears. Senator Tom Cotton joins me now. Senator, good to see you tonight. Now, that needs to be a centerpiece of the GOP 2024 agenda. Are you going, to continue to try to influence the party in that direction? Because there are a lot of establishment figures who hang their hat on free trade regardless of where it takes us.
Yes, absolutely, Laura. It is vital that we decouple strategically from the Chinese economy. And I would just say that what you see today in Ukraine, the appalling tragedy inside of Ukraine as Russian missiles and artillery shells are hitting innocent women and children, could be a preview of what you might see in Taiwan. And everything that we're trying to do now on an emergency basis in the last 15 days in Ukraine, like providing them weapons, we should be doing now with Taiwan. Everything we're doing to break away from the Russian economy, to put a distance between our economy and theirs, to get our companies out of Russia, we should be doing in China again right now. We should be doing these in a careful and deliberate fashion, so we are never in the position with China and Taiwan that some countries in Europe found themselves with Russia and Ukraine, and that we don't empower and embolden the Chinese communists to go for the jugular in Taiwan because they think they have America over the economic barrel.
Now, J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs, Senator, they both announced that they're taking their business out of Russia over the invasion of Ukraine, but their business in Russia is just a small fraction of what their business in China is, where the real marketplace is that they would like to exploit. Are you going to hold your breath on the China pullout?
Well, I think not only large banks, but large American companies, professional services firms should all focus on reducing their exposure to China. What we've seen over the last 15 days, Laura, shows that it's possible. Not only have governments here in America and in Europe imposed sanctions, a lot of these businesses, Laura, are going beyond what the sanctions require, whether that's because they're worried about more sanctions in the future or they're responding to market pressures or what have you. That's what we should be doing right now. It may take a little bit longer in China than it's taken in Russia because our companies are more deeply entangled in China. That's why it needs to start now, especially in critical and strategic industries like, say, semiconductors or rare earth metals.
Now, we learned today that the Biden administration has delayed, perhaps indefinitely, what's called a 301 investigation into China's trade practices. You recall the one that was done under Bob Lighthizer, USTR for Trump, and his team was just phenomenal. It was hundreds and hundreds of pages long. It was extremely detailed, and it set the groundwork for the tariffs that are still in place against various Chinese goods. Well, we're now up for review, but they've just decided, no, we're not going to do that. What does that portend for the Senate leadership, especially if we take control of one or both houses of Congress next year, on continuing tariffs and investigations into Chinese practices?
Well, Laura, it's a disappointing decision by the Biden administration. Frankly, it's not that surprising. We've seen the kind of halting and hesitant half measures they've used in Ukraine for the last 15 days. They've been doing that with China for the last 15 months. As I said at the Reagan Library this week, it's time that we examine free market orthodoxy when it comes to things like trade and immigration. Ronald Reagan knew this. That kind of free market orthodoxy has contributed importantly to domestic debates about tax policy or regulation. He brought taxes way down. He made regulations a lot more sensible. But it often falters when it gets to a world of borders. There's no obvious or natural number of people or goods or amount of money that should cross borders. That's a decision for a sovereign people to make. It's vital that the Republican Party recognize that principle of Reagan's presidency and that we move away from what became after Reagan's presidency, which is a slavish devotion to that kind of free market orthodoxy when it comes to trade policy.
Senator Cotton, wonderful to see you tonight. Thank you.